This is CBC Here and Now.
Eyewitnesses are helping piece together what went wrong at Come By Chance, but the company still refuses to release details.
About face.
There's an equal acknowledgement on their side that more needs to be done.
The RNC acknowledges it has a systemic racism problem.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. Minister Siobhan Coady gave an update on the province's finances today, which included an unexpected surplus fueled by oil and taxes. But as Here and Now's Daryl Roberts reports, the good news may not last.
Newfoundland and Labrador is projecting a nearly $500 million surplus this year. The finance minister made the surprise announcement during the fall fiscal update.
While we're in a better fiscal situation in 2022 than we had anticipated, we still must continue on our path to achieve a stronger, more sustainable Newfoundland and Labrador, to hold our expenses in line and to invest strategically.
The reason for the better situation? Higher than expected oil royalties and revenues from corporate and personal taxes. The price of oil is higher than this year's budget projected, and production is up slightly too. That means the province's borrowing requirement is down, and the provincial debt is lower than expected, though it still sits at more than $16 billion. The province wasn't expecting to balance the books until 2026, and Coady warns next year's budget won't necessarily have a surplus.
So yes, we're taking in more revenues this year, and that's contributing to our surplus. But what I will say is, when you budget next year, we'll be looking at a different scenario.
The opposition parties say the unexpected revenue boost is good news, but they say the government shouldn't be taking credit.
Well, yes, there's luck in a way. You know, oil production's up. It's the price of oil. Price of barrel of oil is the big part. We still get 125,000 people with a family doctor. We're still paying carbon tax. We're still paying sugar tax. People are still sleeping on the streets. So it's good. You know, we won't say it's bad, but I mean, how did we get there? It's not good fiscal management.
The increased tax revenue is a one-time boost, and the price of oil will change in next year's budget. The NDP is criticizing the province's fiscal ties to the price of oil.
In the long run, we also know that depending on oil revenue is highly volatile, and that the day is up, it could very well be tanking in the future. So we've been very clear in this as to where is a future plan. Certainly the Auditor General has been calling for diversification of the economy, so we're looking forward to that.
Coady says government plans to mitigate some of that volatility with its future fund, depositing a portion of oil revenues, which it will use to pay down debt. Coady says the province will contribute more than $150 million to the fund this year, and that the unemployment rate hasn't been this low since record-keeping began in 1976. Daryl Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, some more reaction to this surplus. The group that represents business owners in the province is pleased with the positive outlook, but feels government still needs to do more to curb spending.
Minister Coady and the Premier say all the right things when it comes to what we're going to do to fix our, fiscal house and keep our program spending sustainable. The health accord, right? Changes that they've planned for that. Things that they're going to do with ferries. Things that they're going to do with back office IT. Things that they're going to do with registries to make those systems not just more efficient but function better for people as well. We've heard a lot of talk about this. We haven't seen any of that translate into spending reductions on our books. We're still seeing a slight increase in spending this year. So until we do that, these volatile revenues being responsible for surpluses, it's not sustainable, it's not consistent. So they're making smart decisions, they're being very responsible with how they're managing our debt, putting money away in the future fund, very smart decision. Now let's see them take those actions on the spending side.
Well, the first thing that came to mind for me is just remembering the last time there was an extraordinary revenue burst because of oil revenues, and a caution about what that means for the province. I mean, it's we're a cyclical boom and bust. That's going to happen, and I think the government now has a really good opportunity to start to address balancing the economy. It's one thing to balance the book, but it's completely another thing about balancing the economy. And with inflation so high and interest high, and the big fear that recession is going to hit us, I think government needs to be very, very cautious. So make sure that they're investing in the things that will grow the economy so that everybody benefits.
Exhausting, defeating, and disappointing. That's how one doctor described their journey to practicing in their home province of Newfoundland and Labrador. It's contained in dozens of emails that were sent to the Premier's office after Andrew Furey told doctors that if they wanted to work here, they could contact his office directly. CBC News obtained those documents through access to information, and while their names are redacted, their experiences are not. The CBC's Ariana Kelland has the story.
In July, residents of Trepassey were angry. A physician who wanted to stay in the Southern Shore community didn't because she said Eastern Health was too inflexible. Then came a broad invitation from Premier Andrew Furey.
I'll put a plea out right now. If there's any doctors out there in Newfoundland and Labrador who want to stay, who are elsewhere in Canada, who want to come, who are around the world, who want to come to Newfoundland and Labrador, reach out to my office directly.
And they did. Over 200 pages of emails were obtained through access to information. Doctors who want to stay but are frustrated with heavy workloads. Canadians with Newfoundland ties who want to come here but can't take a pay cut or are disillusioned with recruiters. And others from outside Canada who want to practice but face red tape. Many offered solutions like helping secure childcare, financial relocation, higher salaries, and fewer barriers with the regulator. Some of those things have recently been promised, but some doctors say the province is already behind the curve.
One of the things that Newfoundland is playing catch up with is that we haven't had well-coordinated, well-structured recruitment activities.
An empty waiting room, a site reserved only for the end of the workday.
Busy, very busy. Busier than we have ever been. Busier than we can possibly handle.
Dr. Nicole Stockley says she hears from desperate people daily who need a doctor.
I've had families who have lost loved ones and said, through their tears, now that my loved one is no longer a patient of yours because they've died, do you now have room to take another loved one of mine?
I know the stress and strain that's on the front line. Just bear with us. We're trying everything, and there's still a lot more to come.
Furey says he was disappointed by hearing the issues doctors had with red tape and recruitment. While not everyone in those emails fit the criteria for working here, Furey says job offers have been made.
If you're living in a community that didn't have a doctor and there's one that's showing up, then yes, that's a success. Yes, part of this is going to be picking away at it, one by one, doctor by doctor, community by community.
But with nearly a quarter of the population believed to be without a family doctor, that relief can't come soon enough. Ariana Kelland, CBC News, St. John's.
Now to some COVID news. 5 more people in the province have died in the last week as a result of COVID-19. According to figures released today, 4 of those deaths were in the Eastern Health region, while the other death was in the region covered by Central Health. 3 of those people were over 80, 1 was in their 70s and 1 was in their 60s. There are currently 9 people in hospital and 1 in critical care.
Good evening. This evening we're going to have some rain, drizzle, and fog, and that begins tonight. And we're going to see some rain really in the western part of Labrador tonight and in the overnight and along the south coast of the island. So what we will have is more rain tomorrow. Pretty well everyone is going to get something as all of this rain sweeps right across the province. Then for Friday, hello, sun and cloud. So here you go. Let's take a look at the precipitation here in the Maritimes and into Quebec. That is sweeping through. That's going to be coming to our province. And here you go. This is the system that is going to bring all of that rain our way. Tell you about it a little later on.
Thanks, Heather. A Mount Pearl family is wondering where to turn as they navigate the sudden loss of a loved one. Terry Roberts died late last month. He was on a pilot boat when he went overboard outside St. John's Harbor. Now, in the wake of his workplace death, Roberts' wife had been struggling. Her family says she turned to the Waterford Hospital for help, but that didn't end well. CBC's Ryan Cook reports, but first a warning, this story deals with conversations about suicide.
It's a story that starts aboard a pilot boat on September 27th. 61-year-old Terry Roberts was working one of his last shifts. He and his wife Krista had sold their house and planned to move to Alberta. Just past midnight, Roberts went overboard outside the Narrows and died.
And at night, I get a knock on the door, 2 o'clock in the morning. Here's the RNC saying there was a mishap. Well, no, if Krista was here.
John Connors adored his son-in-law. He spent every day since compiling information on the incident and worrying about his daughter.
My daughter needs a lot of help. She's going through a lot of trauma. And we will fight tooth and nail to find out what happened to Terry. Absolutely.
But their fight is now with the province's mental health system. Krista went to see a grief counselor on October 5th and mentioned she had a plan to end her life. From there, the family rushed her to the Waterford Hospital in St. John's.
We took her down to the Waterford. That turned into a nightmare.
The family detailed the visit in a letter to the Department of Health. They waited for hours, saw a pair of doctors, and were told Krista did not meet the criteria to be admitted. Despite having suicidal ideations and speaking about a plan to end her life, she was sent home.
I can only imagine the grief and the pain and the mental stress she was going through walking out of there. I mean, I myself and my sister walked out of there in mental distress.
The family is now left not only with questions about how Terry died, but how to get Krista the help she needs.
Where do I go? Tell me where I go. I can't get help down there. My family needs help. You know, I'm here ready to cry, right? I'm serious. Where do I get help?
For now, John Connors is making sure his daughter has all the family support she requires, and he hopes that speaking out can help improve access to mental health care in the future. He had a brief conversation with Health Minister Tom Osborne this morning, but hopes to continue the dialogue because he still has many questions left unanswered.
That's the question I will ask the minister. If my daughter commits suicide, are you going to tell me you're sorry?
Ryan Cook, CBC News, Mount Pearl.
More than 6 weeks after a deadly incident at the Come By Chance refinery, details of what happened are starting to emerge. But the company running the facility is not ready to offer apologies or accept responsibility. Here's reporter Terry Roberts with that story.
This story about the refinery is about butane. It's a highly flammable, colorless gas. And sources tell me that a cloud of this vaporized liquid spread over a group of workers who are doing what's called hot work. Things like welding, grinding, cutting metal, making sparks, igniting a violent flash fire that caused mayhem on that fateful Friday before Labor Day weekend. The gas was released from a storage tank and escaped through an open-ended pipe. There was very little wind at the time. That means the gas settled low. The danger unknown to the workers. The fire, serious injuries. So now the questions. Why was this gas released? Who authorized it? This and more, the subject of multiple investigations. 43 days after the flash fire, this man, 47-year-old Clarenville resident Sean Peddle, died. A husband, father of 2 boys, a temporary worker at the refinery.
We were shocked and saddened to hear of his passing.
When asked if Brea would apologize for Peddle's death and the fire, Frank Almaraz would only say the company is focused on the well-being of its workers. And he would not answer directly when I asked him if Brea accepts responsibility for the incident.
The report that the OH&S will produce will talk about causal findings. We'll, have some conclusions in that report.
The 7 others injured that day are still recovering, some with life-changing injuries. The company completed an internal investigation and shared its findings with the roughly 600 people who work at the site and the family members of those injured that day. The company refuses to tell us what happened. We're learning these details from eyewitnesses and those who witnessed a slideshow presentation of the company's findings. Peddle's death has intensified calls from union leaders for accountability. The United Steelworkers is calling for the RCMP to probe the now fatal incident, and have also asked the province to conduct an industrial inquiry. Frank Almaraz says the company will continue to cooperate.
I am personally confident that an event like that will be prevented by the actions that we've taken.
The funeral service for Sean Peddle will take place tomorrow afternoon in Clarenville. Now, the company confirms that work at the refinery will be halted out of respect for Peddle, his family, and his co-workers. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
The Royal Newfoundland Constabulary has done an about-face on systemic racism. In July, Police Chief Pat Roach said he didn't believe it exists in the RNC. Well, today, after months of pressure from Indigenous groups and the media, the RNC's leadership is now saying systemic racism is a problem at the police force. Here now's Mark Quinn reports.
Chief Pat Roach was unavailable to speak with CBC today. But the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary has released a statement that acknowledges there is systemic racism in the police force. It says the RNC is not immune to this systemic formation of racism, discrimination, and societal differences within our institutions, resulting in injustices to Indigenous and other racialized people. The RNC acknowledges the impact of racism within our communities, the role police have played in it. This is something Indigenous leaders here at First Voice in St. John's have wanted to hear for a long time, but they say it's only a start.
We welcome the statement as a good first step toward repairing a relationship between the RNC as a police force and the urban Indigenous community here in St. John's. It's a relationship that has been strained at times.
Since late July, the Indigenous-led coalition has been asking Roach to reconsider his position on systemic racism. They also invited him to the release of the coalition's report earlier this month. Roach didn't respond to the group's letters and also didn't attend First Voice's event. Yesterday, First Voice was invited here to meet with Roach and other RNC leaders.
Pleased that the invitation was extended to us, and our position has always been that we're willing to come to the table with anyone that's interested in talking about solutions to systemic racism.
Justice Minister John Hogan was at the release of First Voice's report earlier this month, but he's only said that he's reviewing its 26 recommendations, including a call to create a civilian-led police oversight board. First Voice is calling on Hogan to commit to changing the justice system.
Well, I find it interesting that Minister Hogan reported last week to the House of Assembly that he had read the report, and this is a quote, cover to cover. So presumably that review is now done, and we would look forward to and expect the minister to make a statement as to where he stands on those recommendations.
First Voice says admitting systemic racism is a problem here at the RNC is an important first step towards reconciliation. But it says larger systemic changes beyond the scope of the RNC are necessary to create a system that's fair for everyone, including Indigenous people. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
The province has proposed amendments to the Workplace Health, Safety and Compensation Act. Those changes would see more cancer and cardiac coverage for firefighters and would cover 8 additional cancers. Here's the minister who oversees Workplace NL explaining the decision.
Well, it's important not only because it's the right thing to do for firefighters right across our province, but it's something they've been looking for a long time. We were the government that brought forward the initial presumptive coverages for cancer back in 2017, 2016, and we've been working with them ever since. This is something that was in our stat review that happened in 2019, and we're very happy today to be able to make it fruition.
The amendment still needs to be voted on, but appears to have all-party support, and many firefighters were in the gallery, including Jim O'Toole, who's now battling cancer himself.
This is a great announcement. This is a great piece of legislation that the Liberal government put in place, and we're very thankful to Premier Fury and Minister Davis for working with us to get this legislation where it needed to be. And this will have huge benefit for firefighters and their families should they get struck down with an occupational cancer due to their profession. Well, in 2016, when the original legislation was put in place, it brought in 11 cancers. That means they are presumed under the presumption law that they don't have to prove that this cancer was caused by their occupation. It's just the claim goes through fairly quickly and not unopposed. With the 8 that are currently going in, it's going to mean the same thing. So in the past, we've really had to jump through some hoops to make that happen, to get some claims approved. In May of 2018, I was diagnosed with renal cell carcinoma, kidney cancer. I did have a surgery and all was good. Unfortunately, 5 months later, I was diagnosed with stage 3 melanoma, skin cancer. It's been a long 4 years, but I've been very fortunate to be fairly healthy through the duration. I've had a great support through my family, through my people here at work. Kidney cancer was actually covered under the presumption law, and the melanoma wasn't, which is going to be a part of this under the skin cancer part of the legislation. So I do have personal experience going through both, one that is presumed and one that's not.
Well, it's opening night for the St. John's International Women's Film Festival, and it's the first red carpet event since the start of the pandemic. The CBC's Aoife Alaba is at Cineplex Theatres at the Avalon Mall in St. John's tonight. It's a big night for many people taking part in the festival, and Aoife is standing by with one of them. Aoife.
Hello, Carolyn. Here with me, we're at the red carpet. We have writer, director, and producer of the film I Like Movies, Chanda Levesque and Lindsay Goldner. How are you guys?
Oh, we're doing great. Yeah, we're so excited to be here.
Well, it's the red carpet. It's the opening night. How does it feel to have your movie opening the International Film Festival?
Well, it's great because it's the International Female Filmmaker Festival, and it's incredible to represent female filmmakers and be the opening night film of the festival.
Well, what was the experience like just, when you made the film? Has it exceeded your expectations?
I think so, yeah. I mean, we made a micro-budget movie during a pandemic, and we were able to premiere at the Toronto Film Festival in September. And since then, Chandler's been going to all these film festivals across Canada to show the film, and it's been amazing to see the reception for the movie.
So is this your first time in St. John's?
Yeah, we're having a really good time.
And what are you expecting for people to feel when they watch this movie?
Well, I Like Movies is about a very pretentious teenage boy who's sort of a bit of an obnoxious cinephile. So I'm interested what all the women in the audience might think about the main character, Lawrence. I wrote this film because I think there's a discrepancy of movies that are, made, written, directed by women, but are about young men, and maybe see young men at an angle that maybe they can't always see themselves. So I hope that people have, empathy for him, but also, they're going to be annoyed because he's very obnoxious.
Are you guys nervous, excited? What are you feeling as you are? I would imagine you're going to be watching people's reactions when they're watching your film.
That's our favorite part, is seeing what people react to, right, Chandler? Yeah, I mean, it's like the film's set in 2003. It's kind of a coming-of-age story. It's set in a video store, so I think kind of helps people remember their own adolescence. I spent a lot of time in video stores. I worked at Blockbuster Video. But this is my, 7th time watching it across the country with an audience, so I think I can actually now start to watch it and appreciate it as a film, not just watching every line, but, every city's different, so Newfoundlanders are known for their amazing sense of humor, so I'm excited to see how they react to it.
Great. Thank you so much for talking to me. I hope you guys have a great experience here and get to do a lot of things. Back to you, Caroline.
Thanks so much, Aoife. We'll check back with you a little bit later. That's our Aoife Alaba reporting live in St. John's. Okay, we're going to get the weather in just a moment, but first we have something kind of fun to show you. Now, yesterday, if you were watching the show, we showed you the latest pictures of the massive pumpkin in Clarenville that's been dubbed Gourdzilla. And Heather, after we showed that picture last night, you were telling us that you also had a giant pumpkin way back when, and we are very thankful that your mom, Rosalie, dug up that photo, and here it is. That is Heather in grade 4 with a giant pumpkin. So what is the story here? It's like as big as you are.
It's massive.
Bigger.
I won it at a grocery store called IGA, for those who can remember it being on Torbay Road in the Torbay Road Mall. And I can't remember how I won it. Maybe I guessed the weight, or, you know, put my name on a piece of paper and won the draw. But anyway, we had a giant pumpkin on the lawn.
And what did you do with it?
I carved it with a friend of mine, Robin, and we can't put that photo up because she would kill me if I did.
Fair enough, Robin. We understand. But what an epic jack-o'-lantern on your lawn that year, no doubt.
Definitely the coolest kid in school that year.
For sure. Okay, well, let's turn our attention to the weather. How are things looking?
Well, rainy, windy, foggy. First thing we've got to tell you about tonight is a wind warning in the windiest place on the island. You know where that is. It's Rec House. We've got winds there tonight that could gust to 100 into tomorrow as well. So taking a look at a future tracker now, we've got lots of rain, fog, wind on the way. It's mostly going to start here in Labrador City, Wabush. We've got some light rain in this area right now. And down on the south coast, the wind is already starting. We've got winds already, according to Environment Canada, gusting in the 70 to 80 range. So let's take a look. This is all going to push through, especially Labrador. We'll pick up some showers on the south coast and the southwest coast tonight by midnight. This will continue to push through by the time you're getting ready to go to work tomorrow. Most places will already start to see some of those showers, and then they'll sweep across the island. Into tonight now. So if you're on the eastern half of the island, so from Gander on east, we're going to have a chance of drizzle or showers tonight, 12 in St. John's. As we go down to Marystown, we're also going to have a chance of drizzle tonight. We'll start to pick up some rain along the south coast, though. Once we get into Burgeo, 2 to 4 millimeters, 5 millimeters for the Port aux Basques area. Burgeo winds gusting 30 to 50, 60, and higher into Port aux Basques and into the Rec House. Still gusty for the west coast tomorrow, or this evening, excuse me, with winds to 50 there, and 15 in Corner Brook tonight. Temperatures dropping off a little bit on the northern peninsula and into the straits. Still that chance of drizzle, and we've got a chance of drizzle right on in to the rest of Labrador, gusty here in Lab City, Wabush, and 10 degrees in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, 9 in Lab City, cooler on the coast. Now let's take a look at the future tracker again. See, this is going to push right across the island. By lunchtime, we should all be seeing some rain, some drizzle, some fog, depending on where we are. But look over here in Labrador West, it starts to clear out, and that's going to clear, clear, clear until we get to Friday, where we should see a mix of sun and cloud. There you go. The eastern half of the island will have some precipitation sticking around into the evening on Thursday and into Friday. It's going to get gusty. We see as that wind sweeps across the island, so will those gusts. Now, for tomorrow, we're going to have some drizzle in the afternoon, mostly for the Avalon, picking up 5 millimeters in Bonavista, 10 to 20 down here in Marystown. As we go a little further west now into Central, we'll get 5 millimeters of rain, 16 degrees for you folks, cooler on the coast in Twillingate, 16 in Harbour Breton, where you'll start to see 10 to 20 millimeters of rain. The further west we go now, the more rain we're going to get. Burgeo, 20 to 30 millimeters, 15, we'll get 20 though. In Port aux Basques, still quite breezy for you folks tomorrow. We'll probably get 5 to 10 on the west coast here. And then as we go up to the northern peninsula, we'll still see 5 to 10 in Port au Choix, 5 in St. Anthony, and 5 in Cartwright as well. The rain moving off tomorrow for much of Labrador, still seeing 5 to 10 in this area here, but 5 for Labrador City that you'll be picking up, with your temperatures still quite warm, between 15 and 9 degrees tomorrow. And here is the accumulation of rain that we are going to get. We see down here on the south coast, we could get that 20 to 30, maybe even higher according to this model. And we'll get lots of rain here in Quebec. This is all the rain that's going to be pushing into the Labrador City area. Now, sun and cloud ahead on Friday, possibly on Saturday. We'll talk about the good stuff coming up a little later in the show.
Well, you're looking at a live shot of the red carpet event at the opening night of the St. John's International Women's Film Festival. After the break, we'll take you back to the organizer. Still ahead in this half hour of Here and Now, a fiery debate in the House of Assembly over a trip the Premier took to Labrador. We'll also hear from the province's finance minister on an unexpected surplus fueled by oil and taxes.
Importantly, a reduction.
But first, it's
Thanks,
opening
Caroline.
night. Yes, it's opening night in St. John's at the St. John's Women's International Film Festival. Aoife Alaba is there live. So what's happening there now, Aoife?
Thanks, Caroline. Here with me we have Vicky Murphy, chair and board in the board of the St. John's International Women's Festival. How are you? We're here, red carpet, live, first in person. How are you?
I'm so excited. It's been a couple of years since we've done our opening night feature.
in person. So, you know, as much as it is great to be home watching movies in your underwear, it's just so great to be in a theater with other people enjoying a film.
So how has the St. John's International Women's Film Festival become bigger and better?
I mean, this is our 33rd year, which is like so impressive, you know what I mean, for a small city like St. John's. So it's just gotten better and better every single year. I've been on the board a few years now, so I've been around since the pandemic. And I think one of the main things that has gotten better is that we now can offer everything virtually. So almost everything that we show during our festival this year is also available online for anybody. For whatever reason you can't come out and be here in person, you can watch it on your screen at home, which is great.
Great. I know you're not supposed to have favorites, but what are you most excited to experience?
I'm personally really pumped for tonight's feature, which is called I Like Movies, because it is a comedy. So I've been on the board for a few years, and honestly, comedies are hard to come by sometimes. They're really hard to make, to be honest. I'm not a filmmaker, but I know that from just talking to everybody. So yeah, we're really excited to have a comedy as our feature tonight. You know, if there's ever a time that we need to be laughing, it's right now. So I'm super pumped.
Thank you so much for talking to me. Yeah, Carolyn, today is just the first night out of a series of things happening here in St. John's. It'll be happening from the 19th to the 23rd. And yeah, stay tuned.
Thanks so much, Aoife. Looks like it's going to be a very fun night there at the festival. Really appreciate it. Well, to politics now. A trip to a luxury fishing lodge made the Premier an opposition target today. In the legislature, acting Tory leader Barry Penton grilled Andrew Furey about a trip Furey went on last summer in July of 2021. It was to a lodge in Labrador owned by businessman John Risley. Now, Risley is one of the people behind a massive wind power project government is looking at approving for development in Western Newfoundland. Details of the trip were revealed in the business news publication All Newfoundland and Labrador.
Speaker, according to media reports, the Premier flew to billionaire Liberal donor
Order, please.
John Risley's luxury hunting cabin last summer. A trip that has been advertised as $75,000 for a group package. I asked the Premier, is this why Mr. Risley said, and I quote, "I don't think there are any question that this project will get approval"?
The Honourable the Premier.
Thank you, Mr.
Barry,
Speaker.
You want to get personal? It's coming. Order, please.
Look, I feel very fortunate that my father and my dad and I share the same passion of salmon fishing as many people do across the province. We're very fortunate to be able to fish with him on the river. I fished with him on the river before this job. I plan to fish on the river with him during this job and after this job, Mr. Speaker. As the member opposite knows, there's an open and transparent process for all proponents, and we're quite grateful that there are many, many proponents with respect to hydrogen and wind. And Minister Parsons has put forward a stringent, strict, open, and transparent process that every proponent can go through, as it should be, Mr. Speaker.
Here. The Honourable the Opposition House Leader.
Thank you, Speaker. An access to information request shows that removing the wind moratorium for private companies was first mentioned by public servants in September of last year, just a few months after the Premier's private flight to this billionaire's hunting lodge. I asked the Premier, was this where the deal was struck, or is this the biggest coincidence in Newfoundland and Labrador history?
The Honourable the Minister of Industry, Energy and Technology.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And certainly, you know, the reality is that wind and hydrogen is something that's been discussed in this province for some time. In fact, I believe Dame Green mentioned it in her May 2021 PERT report. In fact, I can first remember hearing about it when I was in opposition back in 2011.
Speaker, let me get this straight. The Premier spends days with a billionaire donor who's leading a wind development project in a luxury cabin, and he expects people of the province to believe that wind energy did not come up once. 3 months later, public servants start talking about removing the wind moratorium in our province. So, Speaker, does the Premier really believe there's not at least appearance of conflict of interest in this situation?
Whoever's going to sit in this seat is going to have conflicts. It's not about the existence of conflicts. It's about how you manage the conflicts. But I can tell you that we didn't discuss confidential business information with respect to the provincial government or policy initiatives that we're putting forward. Personal time is personal time. There have to be boundaries for people in public life. What I do on my own time is with my own dime.
Today's top story, a windfall in the province's fall fiscal update today. Offshore oil royalties and higher than expected corporate and personal income tax revenues have delivered a surplus of nearly $500 million. Here's more of the finance minister describing the province's current fiscal situation and what government plans to do with some of the extra cash.
Today I report that we're making very good progress, which has resulted in all three of the province's credit rating agencies moving their outlook for the province from negative to stable. I'm pleased to advise that the government of Newfoundland and Labrador is reducing debt and borrowing and contributing to a future fund as a result of strong fiscal and economic outlook for 22-23. This is in addition to the recently announced one-time cost of living relief that we're providing and bringing the total of $430 million in targeted short and long-term investments this year to help residents with the cost of living. Government is projecting higher than forecast revenue by $1.33 billion for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2023, primarily due to offshore royalties, corporate and personal tax, as well as which has resulted from a stronger economy. It is important to note that the 2022 increases in corporate and personal income revenues are due to significant improvement for the outlook for 2022. This is not expected for 2023. We are also holding the line on budget expenses, with the exception of the one-time cost of living relief for residents, increases negotiated in the collective bargaining process, as well as increased costs for the regional health authorities. In Budget 2022, we anticipated a Brent oil price of US $83 per barrel. As of this fall update, we have adjusted our oil price forecast to US $102 for 22-23. This oil price forecast is based on the average of 11 individual oil price forecasts. Royalties are not just reliant on price, but also on production, which is forecast to be slightly higher than projected in Budget 2022. Importantly, the projected increase in revenues enables government to reduce net debt to $16.04 billion, a reduction of $1.01 billion from the original budget of 2022 estimate of $17.05 billion. Borrowing requirements are reduced from $2.7 billion to $1.8 billion. I'm also announcing today our intention to contribute $107 million to the newly established Future Fund based on non-renewable resource royalties received in 21-22, as specified in the regulations. An additional one-time payment of $50 million will also be contributed to the Future Fund based on the 22-23 projected revenues. That's for a total of $157 million. The Future Fund is an important strategy that is part of our overall financial plan to strengthen finances, pay down expensive debt, and lower the cost of borrowing.
Well, Canada's inflation rate slowed for the third straight month in September, but it's a good news, bad news story. Inflation came in at 6.9% as prices at the pump dropped. However, grocery prices increased at their fastest pace in more than 40 years. Nisha Patel explains.
These days, a full grocery cart means an empty wallet.
Everything costs more, the basics, milk, bread.
Something has to be done. This is ridiculous.
Many shoppers doing what they can to get by.
Just go in and get your groceries now. You kind of look for better deals.
I never looked for those discount stickers in my life, my entire life, but now I search them out.
Grocery bills are climbing at the fastest pace since 1981, and the prices are painful for many staples that families just can't do without. Cereal costs almost 18% more compared to a year ago. Baked goods nearly 15%. Prices for fresh vegetables are almost 12% higher. This independent grocer has seen prices from its suppliers jump.
Meat, dairy, cheese and produce, especially produce, we've definitely seen quite an increase in the costs, to us anyways.
And there may be little relief on the food front, as a weak Canadian dollar means it will cost more to import fresh fruits and vegetables over the winter. Food prices are rising as the cost of fertilizer increases. Bad weather takes a toll on crops, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine drives up global grain prices. Meanwhile, consumers are paying more for cars and furniture, though there was less pressure at the pumps, as average gas prices fell 7% last month compared to the month before.
We're headed in the right direction, I think, as supply chains adjust and as demand gradually cools in response to higher borrowing costs, but it's still going to require some patience.
Still, while the headline inflation rate cooled, this economist says core inflation, which strips out volatile items like food and energy, is still too hot.
There are no easy choices. If we don't raise interest rates, then we'll never cool down inflation because we'll never cool down the demand and supply drivers behind it.
So aggressive interest rate hikes will likely continue. Many economists predict the Bank of Canada will raise rates between 50 and 75 basis points next week. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Police across the country are mourning the death of yet another officer. RCMP Constable Shaylin Yang was fatally stabbed after approaching the tent site of a homeless person in Burnaby, BC yesterday. The National Police Federation says Yang was the 5th officer to die on duty in as many weeks. The federal public safety minister had this to say.
It does really underscore that that people who go out and put the uniform on every day have to be prepared to deal with all manner of risk to community safety and their own personal safety. And it has been a really difficult period. There's no doubt about that.
The homeless person was shot during the altercation and is in hospital. He's expected to recover. Yang was a member of the local detachment's mental health and homeless outreach team. She was 31. More local news on CBC Radio for you tomorrow on Newfoundland Morning. Hear from a pharmacist about the shortage of children's cold medications. Time for a look ahead at the weather forecast. So how are things shaping up for the weekend?
Weekend's looking pretty good after all that rain moves away. We've got a nice, warm, sunny day on Saturday and a mix of sun and cloud on Sunday.
Perfect.
Let's get to it. All right, so this is what it's going to look like Thursday evening. There you go. All that rain, a big strip of it right across the eastern part of the island. That's going to move off. And then on Friday, this is what it's going to look like for the province. We're going to have some more cloud here. It'll be cloudy here on the Avalon and for parts of the Burin Peninsula. But for the rest of the island, we'll have a mix of sun and cloud, and it'll be a pretty decent day. 17 here in St. John's, still above seasonal for this time of year, so it'll still be a nice day. Mid-teens for the Burin Peninsula and into central and parts of the west coast, cooling off as we move to the north and to the west up into Labrador, where it'll be about 10 degrees. Cooling off though for northern Labrador and Labrador West. Labrador, you will see some showers though after you see some of that sun and cloud. Now looking into Saturday, we've got an even better forecast ahead. A lot of that cloud, especially for the island, it clears out. So let's take a look at Saturday. It looks like we are going to have a lot of sun across the board, 16, 17, 15 degrees here on the east coast. Again, cooling off as we go a little bit west and of course as we go to the north, where it will be 10 in the Straits, Cartwright, Happy Valley, Goose Bay, getting a little bit more cloud as we move into Happy Valley, Goose Bay and into Nain. And then here in Labrador City, Wabush, it looks like we're going to have some sun and cloud, but also some showers where it will be a little cooler. Now, taking a look at our 5-day forecast. That's that chance of showers tomorrow for the east coast as everything moves across the island. Temperature is pretty steady throughout the week, 17 degrees, some cloud and a little bit of sun peeking through there on Friday. Nice day Saturday, and we get a little bit more cloud cover as we go into your work week on Monday. Now for central and western Newfoundland and central, we're going to have again those showers tomorrow, 16 degrees, mix of sun and cloud on Friday, beautiful day Saturday, some cloud moving back in with even more cloud on Monday. So our temperatures throughout the next 5 days should be anywhere between 13 to 16 degrees. Our lows down into the single digits, 5, 6 degrees for the most part. For western Newfoundland now, again, the showers tomorrow, mix of sun and cloud Friday, repeating basically what's happening in central. Beautiful day on Saturday and some more sun moving in for Sunday and Monday. Into Labrador now, we've got showers right across the board, and if you're in western Labrador, and a chance of them right across the board there. So, not a nice day tomorrow. You could have some sun and cloud, but a snow rain mix on Friday, and then, pretty well, not a really great forecast for you. Temperatures between 13 your high, 6 your low throughout the week, which would be on Friday. For eastern Labrador, you've got a better deal out of the weather here. A little bit of precipitation Thursday, Friday, clearing off into your weekend with a mix of sun and cloud for Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Temperatures between 10 and 12 degrees. That's just beautiful for this time of year. And now for our weather photo. This is a nice another river photo. I really like these river photos. They're beautiful. I really like water too, so I guess that's why I picked this one. And it comes from Malcolm Duffett, and I called it Rocky River, and he took this picture in Weeball Bay. I think I said that right, in the Bay of Islands.
Oh, that is so nice. Yeah, very similar to the one last night.
Yeah.
Standing in the water, yeah.
Yeah, no fall foliage here, but still lovely.
Oh, just gorgeous. Well, that's it for us. Big news today, of course, was the fall fiscal update. If you want more information on what was announced there today, you can always look at our website, cbc.ca/nl. That's it for us. Good night.
Good night.